Microphone check. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. The Coffee and Biscotti Show. I'm your host, Crew Mel Bellissimo. Today is Friday, March 25th. Just past 12 o'clock EDT. Yeah, we're still doing the daylight saving things. Yes, we are. My friends, it's a special day. It is truly a special day because today marks 4 years that I get to call myself a dad. Today is Leonardo's 4th birthday, and I think I'm more excited than he is on his own birthday. I don't know why, but it's the first birthday party he's going to have. You know, it's going to be awesome. You know, he's first birthday, of course, he's not going to remember his first birthday. But his second and third were COVID birthdays, so there was really nobody around. And tomorrow I am taking him to a place called Little Ray's Nature Center here in just outside of Ottawa, where we're going to go pick up snakes and lizards and tarantula spiders and all sorts of cool stuff. I will tell you, though, my friends, I'm a bit emotional. I was writing a post for social media today, just sort of honoring my son. And I figured that in order to do justice and to try to do it without tears, because I know, Josh, always a pleasure to have you, my friend. And God, I've cried so many times on my own show. How the heck does that even happen? Anyway, here's what I wrote, my friends. So if you're not on my social media, please make sure you follow me at Crew Mel Bellissimo on Instagram, Mel Bellissimo on Facebook, Mel Bellissimo on LinkedIn. Make sure you follow me so you can read this post. Thank you for coming into my life. Thank you for giving me the title of Daddy. Today we celebrate you, my love. Happy 4th birthday to the most amazing big little boy I know. Your light is bright, your smile is infectious, and your love is undeniable. I waited all my life to be with you. Today, with the biggest smile and tears of joy running down my face, I honor you, Leonardo. It is you that gives me the strength to conquer the adversity life brings me. You have given me so much that there are no words to describe the love I feel for you. I hope you have a wonderful birthday weekend. And here's just to show you one little snapshot of little Leo. I don't know if you guys can see that. A little snapshot of Leo as a baby. It is Leonardo's 4th birthday, and I'm super stoked. I really am. And I'll tell you, what's most amazing about the universe is that really some things do happen serendipitously, if that's a word. Serendipitously. Hello, Franny. Welcome. Always a pleasure to see your beautiful, shining face here at the Coffee and Biscotti Show. Kisses to you. Shout out to my mom and Sandra Mio, who are hanging out and tuning in to the Coffee and Biscotti Show today. But I was talking about being the universe sort of putting things in place where they're truly almost serendipitous. I say this because today's, of course, as mentioned, is my son's birthday, but my guest today is a man who just loves being a dad. He's the father of 3, 2 girls and a boy. And he fits exactly why I created this show to begin with. As always, I'll say to you every week that, you know, my dear friend Josh Leslie, Pootie Nation here on Twitch, you know, he pushed me. He didn't push me. Maybe he pushed me. I don't know. He just said, you know what? You need to be on this thing called Twitch. And I said, I have no idea what on God's green earth is a Twitch. Like that kind of Twitch? And he goes, no, man, this is a platform and you're going to have a show. And I said, okay, I'm going to have a show. And it's going to be called The Coffee and Biscotti Show. And I did it because I wanted to share stories of passion and transformation. And my guest today really fits and embodies that. And I'll tell you why. Before we get somebody on the show, I send them an email requesting some things, some important things that I need, so that I can start promoting the show and promoting my guest that's going to be on. So I usually ask for a headshot, a title, and then like a short bio so that I could use it for social media and for the what I call my blushtro. That's right. I'm going to try to make our guest blush backstage. That's the point. But he sent me the information, my guest, and there's one thing that he left out. He left out his title. And it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful to not get a person who lives by a title. He says, we were talking just before the show. He says, I don't really fit in any title. I said, that, my friend, is brilliant. That is brilliant. Because the whole world gets us to try to fit in some sort of box. But the truth is, there is no box that could contain this man. He transcends the idea of being in a box. The beauty is I get to see this guy more and more because we work together. We do some work together. We collaborate on some really cool things. He happens to be one of the lead teachers at SEAL Team Leaders. If you don't know, SEAL Team Leaders was founded by two amazing people. One of them, of course, who was a former Navy SEAL Team leader. And Dan, of course, my guest today will fill us in more about that and sort of the background of that. But he works as a lead teacher and teaches some amazing workshops on things like responsibility and feedback and planning and all sorts of cool stuff that, as far as I'm concerned, we should all take. Everybody should learn about the four components, if you will, of responsibility. Everybody should learn how to give feedback to someone. Lucky for me, I got him on my show. And he's the guy who teaches this stuff. He works at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. And he is the founder and CEO. He's an author. He's a speaker of Anthem. Something of the Adventure. Anthem of the Adventure. Oh, he's going to correct me on it anyway. Thank you, Franny, for taking notes. My friends, I have to say that this couldn't be more perfect for today. An amazing dad. A man who doesn't fit in a box. But most importantly, a man who lives his life with passion. A guy that I'm honored to call a friend. I have the pleasure of working with him in a professional capacity. And a guy that if you ever wanted to go on an adventure, this is the dude that you want to call. You want to go on a camping trip, we're going to call this guy. So one day, my friends, I'm going to be going to West Lafayette, Indiana to go and hang out with this dude and go on an adventure because he rocks. My friends, it is with great pleasure and honor to introduce my friend, my colleague, Mr. Dan Zehner. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, get off your comfortable seat and put your hands together for Dan Zehner.
Dude, it's a good thing I wasn't drinking coffee the whole time, or I'd be spitting my monitor, be wearing it. That's the most thorough intro I've ever gotten, and I really appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, I was trying to get through that without any tears, and
me too.
Yeah, you know, I have to say, I talk about the world being, you know, and life being having serendipitous moments, because today's my son's birthday, Dan, and I watched you over the last few months as you spoke about being a dad. And even in some of the courses that we teach, there's always an example of, oh, guys, don't, you know, just pardon the noise. Those are probably my kids running around in the background. And, you know,
my thundering horde.
It's really quite remarkable. I think that one of the things that I love most about you, Dan, is that you really are a young man still. And yet you have taken on the role, you have accepted, you have embodied. That doesn't mean that we're perfect, but you have embodied the role of being a dad and sharing with your kids positive masculine energy. And you're a guy's guy. I mean, let's face it, you're a guy's guy. You do all sorts of crazy adventures. You just got back from one last weekend.
Ooh, really early in the morning. Or late at night, depending on your perspective.
Right. It's really quite remarkable, all the things that you do, and the fact that you do it and you include your kids, and you really are just the kind of male energy that the world needs right now.
Thanks, brother.
And I love that about you. So I want to thank you for taking 90 minutes out of your very, very, very busy day, because I know that you're a busy guy, but that you can be with us here today.
You know, one of my life's aims, and I am far from perfect at it, but this is my goal, is to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from my life. So that I can make time for stuff like this, the things that are really important. To love on other people, and to talk about things that matter, and to not feel rushed. So yeah, thanks for encouraging me to make the margin for this.
Thank you. Well, it's such a pleasure to be here, and you know, the chat's already. I want to give a shout out, of course, Josh, to, of course, I think you know, Mr. Josh Leslie. Josh Leslie.
We need to connect. It's been way too long since we've plotted and schemed some shenanigans together. So
indeed. And then, of course, we have the lovely Franny, who's just an absolute. Dan,
I hear she's a Biscotti baker. So
yeah. Right. We're friends.
Yes.
See, big love, Dan, from Mr. Josh Leslie.
Awesome.
You know, Dan, I start every show the same, and I do it because today's show is about you. And I'll say this publicly, Dan, that most people who come on this show never have had the opportunity to speak 90 minutes about themselves. And some leave here saying that they have a very cathartic experience with it.
Oh, yeah.
That they actually take a moment from what you call, what we call the busyness of life, and say, wow, I guess I can take a step back and be proud of some of the things that I've accomplished and some of the things that I've done in life, for sure. But so what I'd like to do, Dan, is I want you to paint a picture. You know, I think you're this amazing young man, and I wanna share that. I want you to paint that picture of this amazing man, Dan.
Yeah. So the beard and the Land Rover are a carefully crafted facade. Is where I'll start with that. I am very much a work in progress, and still very much this little dude who grew up in the suburbs of Minneapolis, Minnesota, And as you mentioned, I'm 34 years young. Be turning 35 in May. And a lot of times I still feel like this, little 5-year-old in a man's world. Even though I can do a lot of things. I carry a pocket knife around and know how to use it for everything from fixing doors and windows to whittling to uh, you know, carving things and cooking meals with it. I can fix things. I love to fix things, from my aforementioned mostly broken Land Rover in the driveway to a broken heart. With we've got 3 kids, as I mentioned. My son Alex, who's 8, Jane, who will be turning 6 next month, and little Felicity, who's 3.5. I love being a dad, but I'm scared to death about it most of the time. As you mentioned, I don't put a title on things. One of the communities that I'm in, I really love how we approach career and profession. It's Morgan Snyder and his group of Become Good Soil dudes are using whatever decade we happen to be in. For me, it's my 30s, to do the work on our hearts to become the kinds of men so that in the next decade we'll be able to handle what God has for us. And so we take profession off the table as a conversation topic, and everybody's a chimney sweep. So I'm a chimney sweep. That's what I do. So that we get to talk about who we are as men rather than what we do, which is what the rest of the world usually associates with who we are. Yeah. So
that's a way to
over
start.
the years, and this is kind of how that started for me. Is, when I was 9 years old, I was actually watching some old home movies to prepare to tell my story, and I saw a video of myself in my baptism. So grew up in the church, and our pastors got me up in front of everybody in the grainy home movie that my dad's hands are shaking because apparently he didn't have a tripod. But anyway, I'm seeing my pastor talk about my faith journey and things, and then he asks me a question: "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Well, it's a fairly innocuous, normal question. I answered at 9 years old, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. Most of my family it was either an engineer or a teacher of some sort, and pretty much all of them went to the University of Illinois, and I ended up doing the same. But what my little heart attached to was, I'm going to be an engineer, not I'm going to be Dan and do engineering. So for years and years, that's what I focused on, was I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to go to the big school of Orange and Blue in Champaign, Illinois, and I'm going to marry an awesome woman, and we're going to make a life together and make a family together, and then I'll feel like a real man. And I got to that cubicle in my first job, and I sat down and started doing spreadsheets and piping diagrams and things, and thought, I have been sold a crock of lies. This is stupid. Like, this is not what my heart wants. My heart wants to go mountain biking. My heart wants to play hockey and hit people. My heart wants to get into martial arts and go on adventures and go camping all the time. Like, I don't want to be in a khakis and a polo shirt and a beige cubicle the rest of my life. This is stupid. So that's where I found myself at the ripe young age of 22 with my lovely wife, Tracy. We've been married for almost 13 years now. And I remember carpooling home one day when we were, I can't remember if she was pregnant with Alex yet or not, but it was near the end of my time at my first job. And I was asking my carpool buddy, like, is it weird that I feel bad about what we're doing? Like, we were working on military hardware, one flavor, and I was like, if this is ever actually used, a lot of people are going to be hurt. Everybody we know, everybody we've ever loved is going to die, and everybody on the opposite side of the end of this machine is going to die too, if it's ever used for its intended purpose. Is it bad that I feel that way? He's like, no, dude, that's what makes you human.
Exactly.
And so it was that and a lot of other moments that helped me to realize I'm not my career, and I'm created for more than just pushing spreadsheets. And not that there's anything wrong with pushing spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are great. I still love them as a tool. But they're not who I am as a person. And so I had a choice to make there. This is one of the things that I talk about a lot in my writing and in our creative team is, okay, when you're presented with that choice of suffering where you're currently at or the hard thing of making a change, both are hard. And we get to choose which hard we want. So for me, that was moving across the country to be closer to family so that our young boy Alex could grow up closer to his aunts and uncles and cousins and grandma and grandpa and everything like my wife and I did. And that's what I focused on. And there was one thing that I forgot in that transition. It was, I thought focusing on family was going to solve things, and forgot that, hey, I'm bringing myself along in this transition. I'm still the common denominator here. I brought all of my old bad habits and patterns and proclivities and addictions and things along with me. So the next big step was doing the hard work of, it started with the lens of physical training first, because that was kind of the easiest to wrap my mind around. So I started rucking, carrying a heavy rucksack with steel plates and bricks and stuff in it around while I was pushing Alex in a stroller. And my training for my first ruck event with the company Go Ruck that I love dearly. And I remember, like, my first kind of big training for that was we were visiting some family in Vancouver, and we did, I don't know if you got any fans out there who are in Vancouver who are familiar with the Grouse Grind. So it's on the side of Grouse Mountain and goes up the backside of a ski resort, 3,500 feet or 3,700 feet elevation pretty quickly. And whew, that was a wake-up call to my lack of physical conditioning at that moment. Like, man, I need to incorporate regular physical training in my life.
Yeah, that'll do it to you.
Oh boy, yeah, sucking wind on the side of that hill is like, okay, yeah. So that was kind of my beginning into reintroducing myself to adventure. I'm an Eagle Scout. I was in scouting ever since 5th grade, and then scouting was my adventure among other things like mountain biking and creating things as a kid. But once I hit 18, I forgot about all that. It was all about the job. And so the past few years, starting with Go Ruck and then getting into this really great book, Wild at Heart by John Eldridge, about how we as men are created for an adventure to live, a battle to fight, and a beauty to love. That really invigorated me of like, oh yeah, this adventure thing is really helpful and necessary and not just playing around. Like, this is a component of my life that I need to prioritize. And so that's what I've been doing the past few years through getting in with Larry and Annie and the SEAL team, stuff on the scientific side with Purdue, and then starting my own podcast and blog and writing a book. In the midst of that, being a husband and a dad and pay attention to my own heart things. So yeah, that's been my story for a while now. Yeah.
I love it because, a lot of our guests, and certainly a lot of people that even for example, Dan, that are part of our mastermind that we belong to, the Albert Wongs of the world who were, dedicated their life to being a CA. And then one day, I never forget his story about it. He says, it's midnight. I stand up from my cubicle. There's no lights on everywhere else, but it's tax season, and I've got to do over 200 files that, in a course of thing. And I'm going, this is not what I want to do. And the bravery, the courage to be able to say, yeah, I've done all this schooling in the same way that you did. You did all this schooling and then said, no, spreadsheets, they're great for professionals, but this is not what I want to do.
Yeah, and I still do a fair amount of spreadsheets from time to time, but it's not my biggest thing, right? I still got a day job that I really appreciate, and it's a great team, but it doesn't dominate my attention.
Beautiful. Do you know how many people, Dan, need to hear that? Just that line alone. I have a day job, and I appreciate it. But how did you put it? It doesn't dominate my attention?
Yeah. My attention and my affection are reserved elsewhere.
Yes.
I'm going to pull out a little diagram here that you may be able to see with the blur. If not, I can turn it off. but this is from my friend Morgan's book, Becoming a King, that I spent a year going through with a group of guys in the Dad Edge Alliance. Shout out to you guys.
The DEA.
Yeah, and boy, this book, along with Wild at Heart, was a game changer. Let's see if you can see this. Let's turn off the blur here, and maybe you can see it. The idea here, as I turn off my blur, is there is a way of relating that is very beneficial to our hearts. And I'm going to get a little faith-based here because that's how I operate. And if that's not you, that's cool. But for me, I've found this to be super effective for my own heart. So if you see this little candy corn here,
yeah,
we've got different sections with different sizes in order of priority for our own hearts. So time with God first, of just soaking in his presence, and then taking care of our own souls, mountain biking, meditating, martial arts, things that bring us joy and care. Then our marriage in terms of family, like before our kids. This is something that my wife and I do rather well. Of our kids are not our world. Our marriage is our world, and our kids live in it. Because then we show them where they live in the world. They are not our universe. And that's an appropriate thing I've found for our family.
Well, and if I could add, just before you go on to the next block,
oh yeah,
that this was a sort of a metaphysical teaching that we talked about, that said we don't own our kids, we're just their first teachers.
Bingo, exactly. Then what Morgan coined this phrase, or maybe it was Dan Allender, but this idea of like-hearted kings, people who have the same desired end state as we understand it, right? They want the same things out of life, and they got to fight through the same crap to get it. Then our mentors, and then this blank spot is everything else in life. Our careers, our favorite hockey team, our everything else, right? So
that's right.
That's precious little. That's the tiniest triangle there. And so, you, my friend, like-hearted king, our friend Larry and Annie, like-hearted kings, my boss at Purdue, like-hearted king. But there's very few of those, like a handful.
Right.
And so that's where I've found over the past couple of years here some really effective ways of operating. And I don't always get it right. Of putting those priorities in their place and putting the time on the calendar to protect them has been really beneficial for me.
Yeah, which is to be fair, Dan, why I always resonated with that story about the professor who brought the mason jar with the golf balls.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because that to me was it looked like there was maybe 7 or 8 pieces there before you got to the top where everything else fit.
Mm-hmm.
But those 7, 8 pieces are what I call the pizza pie slices. The slices of the pie that represent the most important areas of our life.
Bingo. And so often we prioritize the little tiny piece, everything everyone in the world is asking us for, because we're good dudes. We got a lot of stuff going on for us. People want what we have. And we say yes to all of that and no to our own souls. We say no to our wives. We say no to our kids. We say no to our like-hearted kings. And then we wonder, why do I feel so bad all the time?
Right.
Why am I so overwhelmed all the time? And not that anything in that little triangle is a bad thing necessarily. It's a lot of good things.
Sure it is.
But
sure it is. But those are the shiny objects. Those are the sand.
Shiny objects.
Those are the sand and the marbles and the sand and the water at the top of that mason jar.
Yep. Exactly.
It's so refreshing, Dan. I have to be honest, bro. It's so refreshing to hear this, because it's kind of like, here I am. I'm single again, and I can just imagine, the thought of being single is a bit like already.
Oh yeah.
So much to process, because I can't imagine doing the whole, hey, so what do you do for a living? Like,
ugh.
Really?
It's exhausting.
It's
It
exhausting,
makes me tired just thinking about it.
right? And I don't care what you do for a living.
I want to know who
And
you are. What
I
makes
want
you
to know
tick?
who you are. And I use this, Dan, and I'm sure that you'll appreciate this, that there's a difference between understanding someone's personality and someone's individuality. So we
Yeah.
say in the world of metaphysics that individuality comes from Holy Spirit, and that from their personality is what we create so that the world can view us in a particular way.
Yeah. In my parlance, that would be false self and true self. I mentioned
Exactly.
earlier the beard in the Land Rover is a bit of an elaborate facade. It's that part of that is my false self. Part of it is my true. The false self is what I present to the world so that I look cool,
Right.
so that I protect my vulnerable bits. It's an elaborate fig leaf for those of you familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, right?
That's right.
They get kicked out of the garden, and what do? They put on some clothes because they're naked. And so ever since we've been doing that as people, we've been putting little pieces of fig leaf and leather over us to protect our vulnerable bits so that people don't know how messed up we are. And our true self, or how glorious we are.
That's right. How glorious we are. Especially how
We're
glorious
ashamed.
we are.
We're ashamed and afraid that if we show how glorious we are, that we'll be judged for that, that we'll be ostracized for that, that we'll be put in a box somewhere for that. And so we hide it.
Yeah.
We hide it behind beards and Land Rovers and fancy houses and other things.
Exactly. Well, I use the example, Dan, of this thing I'm writing. I'm in the almost complete writing a blog about called. It's going to be called Crew Mel the Electrician. I have Crew Mel, TV repair guy, and now I'm going to do Crew Mel the Electrician. And what I talk about it, that is, I talk about the idea of pain and sort of giving sort of the metaphor of what happens when you plug in a plug into a socket and it sparks, and how that represents pain. And so as opposed to following the line to the fuse box, which in our case represents the heart, we just covered up with McDonald's and Pornhub.
There you go.
And so I really appreciate this because it's in alignment with exactly the way I feel about life.
Yeah. I heard a really good category for how to approach those addictive behaviors that we've all got, right? Like, it's not about the addiction. That's your heart telling you that you have something that you haven't addressed and that you're medicating that with the McDonald's or the Pornhub or whatever. And you need to pay attention. Maybe it's you don't get enough sleep, frankly. Many of us don't. Maybe you don't work out every day and you need to. Maybe you aren't spending enough time with your wife. Maybe you're not spending enough time reading things that are infused with the Holy Spirit rather than just a bunch of junk on BuzzFeed.
Right.
Maybe you're not spending enough time in solitude and reflection. All these things. So I had actually Larry's former SEAL teammate, Eric Davis, was the guy who really lovingly whacked me over the head with that. He's like, dude, what you think is the problem is not the problem. It's what's underneath. It's the tip of the iceberg. There's another thing. I'm going to reference this a lot because it's been super helpful. One of
and
the
just
things,
just so that you know, Dan, one of our dear friends,
man, hey Scott,
right, says I've
Good to see you,
observed
buddy.
Dan's growth firsthand over the years. You're the epitome of jumping out of the comfort zone to enter enlightenment. Respect, brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been jumped out of a perfectly good airplane and been building my parachute on the way down. But one of the things, and we talk about this in SEAL Team too, but I just happen to have this right in front of me written down, is looking at our observable habits. So you could do this too. So we've got Franny's taking notes. So make 3 columns on your sheet of paper, Franny. And at the top of each of those columns, we want observable habits, motives, and core beliefs. So, and then just think over the past 24 hours. maybe the past week. What are some things that you have observed about yourself? I'll share a few of mine from this is back in July of 2020, but many of these are still true. Checking Facebook multiple times per day. Rushing, trying to accomplish too much in too little time. I'm frustrated at kids for breaking things. Looking at things that I shouldn't online. Buying games or other things to make me feel better. Sleeping in, hitting the snooze button. Things like that. Beneath every observable habit is a motive. I check Facebook a lot. It's because I want to stay up to date on my friends in the world. At least that's what I tell myself. But beneath every motive is a core belief, like that I can get through uncertainty in life with more knowledge. It's what my core beliefs. It's like if I know enough, I can figure it out. Right. Another one about the rushing, trying to accomplish too much. My motive is I want to keep my promises and make my bosses happy and getting a lot done. Fine enough motive, but the core belief is that my worth as a man is tied to what I produce for others.
Love it.
So it's pretty enlightening going through that exercise. This is no coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. So one of my observable habits that you have just observed as well, I chuckle at the end of sentences. My motive is sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, that I don't want to appear threatening or to be taken too seriously so that I can be judged on what I say. And my core belief there is that I'm not worth listening to.
And today we're proving otherwise, my friend.
Today we're proving otherwise. And now I'm chuckling just to be fun.
That's right. We're proving otherwise, because I believe that this kind of talk is what the world needs, especially in a time where, we're on the brink of what could be a terrible situation in Europe. We're still not out of the pandemic. That's for sure. There's still stuff going on. We have here in Ontario, then mask regulations have sort of lifted and what have you. And all it's going to take is a different kind of strand to come back. And it's going to be one that's a little more powerful than the rest. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we're back to square one, Yeah. So it takes this kind of observation of oneself to really get to the core. Many people use the concept or the idea of an onion, and that we have to peel back the layers of the onion before we can really see who we are in the middle of that onion. But I want to go back something, Dan. I mean, sure. I love this. I want to focus a bit of time on you, because I want you to demonstrate this change, as our dear friend Scott has firsthand witnessed himself. But I want to talk about how this changed. And I'll tell you why. Because people connect through story.
Oh, yeah.
So you get at 22 years old, you get a job.
So I got my dream job at 22. So when I grew up, you mentioned the cardboard boxes. Like, dude, I would build submarines and planes and robots and things as a kid, and I thought, hey, I want to go build stuff. I want to design stuff. I want to be an engineer. And in high school, I saw the movie Hunt for Red October, and then I watched it again and again and again, and I read the book, and I read every submarine book I could get my hands on, and actually wrote 2 term papers in high school, one for economics and one for U.S. history about submarines. And so by the time I got to engineering school, I'm like, I am going to be an engineer, right? And I'm going to work on submarines. And ended up getting to interview with the company that I had written about 3 times already by then, General Dynamics, the electric boat shipyard out in Connecticut. And in my interview, they wrote on the back of my resume, unhealthy obsession with submarines.
Come on. They did not.
They did, because I got to talk to the person. I worked one cubicle over from the person who interviewed me there. And she told me after I got the job, she's like, you know what I wrote on the back of your resume? Unhealthy obsession with submarines. So I get my dream job.
Oh my God.
Marry my dream girl. Like, you can't script this any better, and married Tracy, and we moved halfway across the country to start life together. And what was really cool about that was neither of us had been to the Northeast before. We ended up basically relying on some friends of friends of friends of friends to help us find an apartment and go to this completely unknown place to begin a life together, where the only relationship we have is ourselves, is each other. And we've only known each other for 3.5 years and just got married. And so what an adventure. How I describe adventure. So, Mel, you're familiar with this idea of distinctions. So slight sidebar here. Larry and I, while he was in a hot tub in Utah over Zoom, we crafted a distinction together for adventure so that it's a more functional definition so you know it when you see it. So here's how I define adventure. It's any experience where you learn by persevering into the unknown and you find fulfillment. So a newly married guy at 22 going to Connecticut with his new wife to a job that he's never been at before, quite the adventure. And, you know, it was great. It wasn't without its challenges. I mean, we were just getting to know each other, and my wife is much more introverted than I am. And so it was a challenge to build a friend network there, a support network. We lived there for about 4.5 years until our son Alex came along. And then we had a decision to make. I remember so many nights just praying and crying into my pillow about, like, I've got to give up my dream. I've dreamed about the life that I have since I was 9 years old. And now I've got to give it all up for my son. Ooh. I need to stock some tissues next time I talk about this. So I did. So we God is so faithful. A few years prior, I'd gone to a hydraulic systems conference, like research conference here at Purdue, and I drove by the Subaru factory. So anybody in the US and Canada who drives a Legacy or an Outback, it was made here in Lafayette. And I drove a Subaru at the time, like, oh, cool, I got a Subaru factory here. Like, and to myself, I thought later, hey, if I ever have to move back to the Midwest, maybe I can work there. Lo and behold, we're looking to move to the Midwest. This is a 3-hour drive from my folks and a couple hours from Tracy's family in Chicago. And I got the job at Subaru as a manufacturing engineer and thought, great, everything is solved. We're close to family and I'm working where my car was built and I love Subarus. And then I am stuck in a paint booth or an office all day and working with mostly great people, but I'm working all the dang time. I remember working one weekend where, so as a manufacturing engineer, you do most of your project work while the manufacturing line is down. So weekends and holidays, which for a guy, as you've seen, who loves his family and loves being with them, and
sucks moose balls.
It sucks moose balls. So yeah, that's a really good way of putting that. I'm in there on a Saturday with a maintenance guy, and he's telling me about how he's missing his kid's first soccer game. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, there's only one first soccer game in your son's life. There's only one. You can miss the 20th soccer game, you'll understand, but there's only one first soccer game. This is stupid. And I saw a future version of myself I really didn't like that day. A guy who was on his second or third marriage, and nothing against divorce or anything like that. I don't want that to be the message that gets across. But I didn't want that for me, right? I didn't want to be the guy who's on his third marriage and missing his kid's first thing just because of work. And so I quit before they fired me, frankly. It was not a good cultural fit. Landed myself in another cubicle down the road at a Caterpillar large engine facility and basically spun wheels on really big spreadsheets for a couple of years there. But that was the seed of charting my own path. In between those two jobs, I started to get into woodworking, which is a big family passion years and generations back. One of my great-grandfather on my mother's side was a furniture maker. And kind of all of us along the line have gotten the bug at one point or another. So for those in Canada, if you remember back in 2014, the hometown hockey tour, 25 cities across Canada.
Correct.
I got an email from the guy who is in charge of the marketing for that from Rogers. he saw this bench that I had made out of broken hockey sticks. And it was like my last week and a half at Subaru. And I was like freaking out. It's like, hey, I really like that bench that you built. Could you make us some more of those? And I'm thinking he's some dude like putting together a pond hockey tournament and maybe wants a couple of them for prizes or something. So we talk later that evening and he's like, no, I actually work for Rogers. You ever heard of us? I'm like, have I heard of you? Yes. Like, I'm not from Canada, but I,
Once or twice.
And he's like, we're putting together this thing called Hometown Hockey, and Ron McLean and the gang are going around the country to 25 cities, and we want one of your benches in each city as a gift. I was like, hold, please. Put him on mute. Yes!
Hold, please.
And it was just like, what? And so the next, I still remember the look on Tracy's face after I signed the contract with the guy for more money than I ever signed a contract for anything for outside of $300,000 worth of 3D printing equipment for my previous life in the shipyard. It was like, you're going to pay me how much to do this? Yeah, cool. So I bought like 550 broken stick shafts from some dude in Illinois and met him in a bank parking lot like a mafia hit. And like we got his black truck and my black Subaru and we're chucking things in the back of it. And so if you ever are like at a trivia night at a bar sometime and they ask how many hockey sticks will fit in the back of a Subaru, it's 550 because we could not put any more in there.
And the one guy leaves with a big bag and the other guy leaves with a small bag.
Yeah. It was nuts. So I built these benches. It took me like 4 months to do it, and we shipped them all over the place. And I got to go to St. Catharines and went to the tour there, and it was amazing. I'm like, how did this become like I thought I was going to go off and make my career as a furniture maker, and it turned out that was just a one-time thing because I'm terrible at marketing and tend to jump in with both feet over my head, more than I have skill to handle. But it was a pretty cool moment of, wow, things can really happen when I'm open to a different path. And so for a while, I tried to pursue that different path. Like while I was at Caterpillar, I'm like, every free moment was researching woodworking stuff, and I was building stuff in my shop at night and doing a few commissions here and there. And then that didn't pan out because I was trying to do more than I frankly had skill for. But the bug and the idea transferred over to my first conversation with Larry. Was around my desired end state for life. And we noodled around this idea of like, it's not about the furniture making. You actually just want to be able to bring goodness into the world using the strength that you've been given. So let's go there. So the next few years spent training with him and the team and employing that at my job at Purdue to great effect, and essentially engineering myself out of most of my job thanks to what I learned, which is great, which freed up some time. Jumped into other more physical adventures. I hired a coach for the first time, my buddy Ian Hawkins from Australia, who's just fantastic. And he gave me some better categories for taking care of my heart, and working with Eric Davis, and going from, a guy who's got a few too many pounds on him to a guy who can carry just about any amount of weight that I would like, any distance that I would like to, given, the amount of time that I need for that. So, I went down a long, deep rabbit trail there, but
actually, it was perfect. It was really great. I mean, even our friend Scott said, what a great story.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Much love to you, Scott. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, so it's cool. I've got a picture I'll show you later. I'm wearing this GoRuck t-shirt from my first GoRuck event. I'll tell the story about that in a second. But it's a shirt that memorializes the Battle of Mogadishu. So if anybody watching or you've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, that's the Battle of Mogadishu. And I had a picture of myself in about 2016, and I'm in the shop building something for somebody else that I really didn't want to be doing. And I've got this kind of dead look on my face and way too many pounds on, and I'm sporting this kind of childish goatee, and it's just sad. And then a couple years later, I'm wearing the same shirt in a picture with Larry and Annie on their beachside condo balcony, and I had just finished the 8 Weeks to Seal Fit program from Mark Divine, which, if you're not familiar, holy crap, it is hard. It's like, this is the thing that you do to prepare to become a SEAL. Like, you go do this, and then you go to BUD/S, and you'll be fine physically. And I did it, and I was able to bring my book to an actual bona fide Navy SEAL. Like, look what I just finished this morning, and he goes, "Damn, dude, that's some work." And I'm wearing the same shirt, and I've got ripped, and I've never been, not really ripped, strong. You can noticeably
kind of deezed
strong.
up,
Noticeably strong, like capable of doing some things, and more emotionally secure in who I was. So it was a pretty cool just change there, and even since then, been going even further down that road. So yeah, the idea of reflection, setting my sights on a different path, and then doing the training to make it happen, and not getting sidetracked has been a constant story, which, spoiler alert, is the main theme of the book that I've been writing. But it revolves around this idea that came up during my first overnight Go Ruck challenge. So, man, that was hard. 2015, it's October, it's in Chicago, so it's cold. I mean, it's not freezing, but close. And these events are where you and a team of your soon-to-be best friends led around a perfectly good city by some current or former Special Forces guys who have been there. And they give you a flavor of what it's like to be in the Special Forces. So you carry a 30-pound steel plate in your pack, plus some water and snacks and first aid kit and a couple other things. And you do whatever they tell you for 12 hours, starting at 9 p.m. So you go cover lots of miles, and you do lots of burpees and buddy carries and carrying of sandbags and each other. And we get to about 3 a.m. in the morning. Every time this happens is when my inner demons come out to play. That bully from when I was 8 and a bit chubby is fat. You're slow. You're ugly. You're not worth a sack of anything. What idiot signed you up for this? Oh, wait, that was you. You're the idiot. All that for a long time. And in that moment, we've got a choice to make. And I remember it's 3 a.m. It's raining. I'm on my back doing flutter kicks with my ruck barely over my head, and my hands are shaking. And the cadre is saying, counting out the reps, and I'm barely croaking out the reps. And I say out loud, like, I can't. And the guy in front of me graciously says, "Fuck yes, you can. Don't you fucking quit on me." I was like, okay, fine. So I was like, I'm just going to do the next flutter kick, and I'm going to do the next thing after that. I'm going to do the next one, just to focus on the very next thing in front of my nose that I got to do. And eventually, the laws of physics say that the sun has to come up. And if I can get to dawn, I can get to breakfast. Now, I can get to breakfast. Biscuits and gravy heals a multitude of wounds. So I'm going to set my sights on the biggest damn plate of biscuits and gravy in the city of Chicago, and I'm going to eat 2 of them. So since then, that has stuck with me. Whenever things get hard, I need to put in the work and put in the training to prepare for them. And then when they get harder, think of whatever the equivalent of a big plate of biscuits and gravy, sometimes literally, will get me through it. And just don't stop.
All about mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and I want to continue along that, because it's a wonderful path you've brought us on. So what I gather is you're doing some work, you've got some jobs, the caterpillar thing, you meet Larry. What happens? What was that the start of for you?
Mm.
Meeting Larry clearly was a monumental time in your life.
Yeah.
Talk us through that,
Yeah.
Dan.
It started a few things. One was I can't do this life thing alone. I can't lone wolf it anymore. I've always been a pretty friendly guy and I have a lot of friends, but I didn't team well. Like in my career, it's always been as soon as that job isn't serving anymore, I ditch it. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but I wasn't a good team player. I wasn't a good team creator at all. And I'm still on that path. But that was the biggest thing, was that word team and being more precise with my words. Being less careless with my words, because words have power. And even a word like power, right? Is the ability to influence change. And so being more precise about how I grow my personal power by learning more effective things, directing my study, practicing skills that are really going to set me up and my family up for where we feel led to go. And then gaining experiences that really help me become confident in what I need for this season of life. So that was what that started. And I think not that there's a culmination point, but kind of a peak. So I wear a mountain on my shirt. That's the logo for my podcast for a good reason. Of this
Anthem
idea that
of the Adventurer.
Anthem of the Adventurer, yeah, is we set our sights on that summit moment, and we think that's the end. But we can't live on the summit of a mountain. Like nothing grows there. There's no water there. There's no air there. Summits are great. Absolutely, we should set ourselves on them. But when we get to the summit of one mountain, we see the summit of the next mountain. And we got to go down into the valley to recharge and replenish and go through some tough brambly bushes and craggly stuff to get to the next one. So 2019 was a year of summits for me, though. 2018 into 19. So at the end of 2018, I saw a Facebook post in the Go Ruck Facebook group by Jason McCarthy. He's the retired ranger who founded the brand. And he said, hey, we're doing a really special thing to mark the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. We are doing a series of Go Ruck events in Normandy on the week of June 6th for the 75th anniversary. You should be there. And I jokingly responded in the comments, haha, I'll bring my wife and 3 kids and we'll make sandcastles on the beach or something like that. And he responded back, said, I'm bringing my family too. See you there. It's like, oh shit, he caught me. Like, I can't just joke my way out of this. And so
you almost committed yourself already.
Right. And so I committed myself through that comment section. Like we went back and forth. This guy's like busy dude, but he got me to start thinking about this could actually be a thing. Now, at this point, my wife is 7 months pregnant with Felicity. I'm like, how do I bring this up to a very pregnant woman about bringing our soon-to-be 3 crazies across the Atlantic Ocean and then leaving them for a day to do a Go Ruck thing? And thankfully, Jason's wife, Emily, is mom, an awesome one. And I was like, hey, how do I talk to Tracy about this? And so we began a friendship that continues to this day. And I really, really appreciate her friendship and advice. But she helped with the idea of how to craft that conversation. And we left it as a couple months after the baby, we'll talk to her about it. So we're headed to the hospital. Tracy's in labor. And I get a message from Jason as I posted about, hey, I'm going to be a dad of 3, joining him in the dad of 3 club this week. And he sends me a message while I'm sitting in the delivery room with Tracy, waiting for Felicity to be welcomed to the world.
Excuse me.
And he says, hey, remember your Go Ruck training. Eat your coffee, drink your coffee outside. Don't fall asleep. rub your wife's feet, bring her ice chips, and remember that she's got it way harder than you do. Something along those lines.
Yeah, well, he was right about that.
Oh man, and I will never forget that because he had such care for just me as a dad in that moment, and it was just one dad to another, not CEO of a really successful company. It was just one dad to another dad, and I'm like, I am going to go to Normandy for that dad. And so a couple months go by, and Tracy and I had the conversation, and after she got done looking at me like I was insane, actually started to thinking about, like, that might actually be really fun. And we ended up going. We only took one of our 3 kids. We left the other 2 with my parents, who said, please don't do that again. Leave them with us for 9 days. So, we used up all of our chips there in one go, but we took little 9-month-old Felicity to France and had just this amazing experience where I got to experience with some of my new best friends a little bit, a teeny tiny bit of what those D-Day landings really, really meant in a physical sense. We were on Omaha Beach at dawn in the water with heavy rucksacks on June 5th, which was the original D-Day before it got pushed back a day due to weather. And we were there with a couple of D-Day veterans, one of which ordered us into the water. And then we had bagpipes playing as we're charging out of the water and onto the beach and low crawling across 200 meters of sand while, the cadre are shouting at us and, pretending that mortars are hitting us and calling out casualties to now be carried across the beach and dragged by their feet and getting to the only piece of cover on the beach, which was Lambert's Rock. And then we told the story of Mr. Lambert, who was a platoon leader in the Army. And there's a plaque honoring him and his men. One of our teammates met Lambert the day before, Ray Lambert, and told his story of getting to that one piece of cover that could stop a bullet on the entire beach. And this beach is covered one machine gun every 80 some odd feet. And each of those machine gunners fired over 12,000 rounds that day. So you got bullets flying everywhere. And he's dragging guys behind this to keep them safe. And he gets honored for that. But he says, I don't want to be on a plaque unless I'm with my men. Don't put my name at the top of that plaque. Put it in at the bottom. I want to be with my men because that's how I live. And that always really stuck with me. So that was just an amazing experience that would not have happened if I wasn't open to prioritizing the wacky adventures as insane as they sound at the time. Like, when I call it like Holy Spirit nudges. Like, when the Holy Spirit nudges me towards something, it's not just something that I think is cool, because I think a lot of things are cool, clearly. It's not just something I think is cool, but this is going to be really good for you, even though it's going to be seemingly unattainable. That same summer, actually the very next month, very similarly, I did something that I thought was unattainable just a few months prior. I trained up built a team around. We got 5 guys to do what GoRuck calls the STAR course. 50 miles in under 20 hours with a 20-pound plate in your ruck. So we had a real type 2 fun time. So fun afterwards, not fun in the moment. Fun having done it, not fun doing it. And
50 miles.
Yeah. And so think about the hottest summer day you can imagine. This was in Indianapolis in July. It was 95 Fahrenheit out with a heat index over 100 because it was humid. And we start out at 9 p.m. like any other good GoRuck event. And we got handed a packet of waypoints with places that we needed to navigate to by Cadre Igor. I still don't know his real name, but he's a former Army Special Forces guy from a unit that will remain nameless. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And we got to navigate to all these points within 20 hours. So we got to go downtown Indianapolis and get some points around there. We got to go to the Indian Motor Speedway and a couple of points around there. And then way out in the middle of nowhere is Conner Prairie. It's this like reenactment village for the how life was in the 1800s. But it's 18 miles out of town. So we get the downtown points, and we're feeling great. And we're in downtown Indianapolis, and we're getting the police officers to follow us on Instagram because we tell them our crazy story, and they're like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And then we look at our next waypoint, and it's 18 miles away, and we go, "Oh my god!" Like we're gonna be on this same road literally all night, and so we start trudging along, and we're on the same road all night. We get to our destination at 5:30 in the morning as the sun is rising, and we realize we are absolutely screwed. We have not been going fast enough because we should have been halfway back from that point by then if we wanted any chance of finishing and not feeling like death warmed over at the end. So one of our guys almost quit. To keep him from quitting, we reminded him that we were living to the Ranger Creed that day, and part of the Ranger Creed is quit is not a Ranger word. And we were literally listening to some YouTube video of someone reading the Ranger Creed as we were marching along, and we were passing rucks back and forth to give guys a break. And I remember carrying my buddy John's ruck for longer than he would care to admit. And so I'm carrying 50 pounds just to give him a little bit of a break. And he did the same for me later. But man, it was just a slog, that back half of that event. And we got to mile 43, and we meet the people who are doing the 26-mile version of the Star Course at one of our waypoints. And one of my buddies who I've done a couple of other events with comes up and he's like, "Dude, you look like shit." It's like, "Yeah, you think? I've been doing this all night. I got 43 miles under my belt. How far have you gone?" Not that far. And then I got a very good object lesson about why we need a team right after that. So John, my buddy, was not feeling very great, and I'm feeling well enough to be delusional. And I'm like, "All right, I'm going to grab your ruck, and I'm going to go to the next waypoint. I'll see you there." And so I storm off into the distance with some, Navy SEAL marching cadences playing on Spotify, so I have a pace reference. And I make it about a mile and a half before I collapse under a tree from heat exhaustion. And one of our teammates calls up his wife and is like, "Hey, can you meet us at the Indy Motor Speedway with as much gallons of water and big jugs of Powerade as you can find?" And towels from our hotel. And so she meets us there. We throw towels over our head, and we douse our heads with water to keep us cool. We chug a big jug of Gatorade, and we go to about a mile down the road, and she meets us again, and we do the same thing. And that's how we finished the last 3 miles, was with our dear friend Jeff's wife giving us very much needed hydration. And I remember barely being able to walk those last 3 miles. We had a time limit of 20 hours. When we got that last 3 miles, we had an hour and a half to make it back, which, when I'm feeling good, no big deal. But 3 miles in an hour and a half when you can barely walk is a long ass way. And I was able to walk about like this. Just kind of shuffle, hobble back and forth, and curse the ground that I was walking on for being without shade. And uttered some things I don't care to repeat during those 3 miles.
You had a few choice words.
Oh boy. Yeah. God and I had a few choice words. And we get to the edge of the park where we were going to finish. And one of our guys saw his dad and his kids met him with like a mile and a half to go. So he had a second, third, fifth wind, whatever. And he took off. I'm like, "I have no idea how you're moving right now, but good for you. You go ahead and finish." So he meets the Go Ruck cadre, and they come and meet us at the edge of the park. I remember it's Cadre Cody, this retired Navy SEAL as well, comes out with his bushy gray beard, and he goes, "You guys better not find another fucking gear, or you're not going to finish on time." And I'm like, "Ugh, okay, fine." And so we start this like call and response thing that we've been doing all night to motivate each other. And so we was like, "Are you feeling good? We're feeling good. You're looking good. We're looking good. We ought to be Hollywood in Hollywood. Oh yeah." And we like yell that for like the last half mile, and we kind of do this little airborne shuffle jog thing to get to the picnic shelter, and we collapse in a heap with my wife and kids watching, wondering what the hell did Dad just do to himself. And they got a stack of Domino's pizzas and a couple of coolers full of Budweiser, which I'm not a Budweiser guy, but that is the best tasting beer I've ever had.
Nice.
And I sit down and I take my ruck off for the first time in a long while, and I take my boots off and I can't move my toes. Like I tried to curl my toes to stretch them, and they wouldn't move. I was like, what did I just do to myself?
Yeah.
It took me a day and a half to be able to feel my feet again. And crazy me had backed up this wacky adventure with a work trip to Colorado that we're turning into a family vacation. So I'm hot, I'm sweaty, I'm tired. I smell horrendous. And Tracy's got to drive my butt and my kids from Indianapolis to Chicago to catch a plane at 5 a.m. the next morning. Ugh, it was nuts. So that night when we got to the hotel, Alex helped me get ice from the ice machine down the hall and fill up the bath for an ice bath. And like, I was thinking at that point I was going to need a wheelchair to get to the airport, but thankfully my muscles got a little bit better by the next day. But man, I felt like somebody was trying to pull my legs off with a winch.
No doubt. But, Dan, what I love about, you sharing this story is that because, you talked about team and the importance of a team. And here you are working now as a lead in a company called SEAL Team Leaders.
Yeah.
And I want to spend, a few minutes on that because I want to talk a little bit about what Dan is now. Seeing all of these, hearing all these incredible stories of pushing yourself to a limit. I mean, listen, I've run a marathon before. And I vowed myself I'll never run one again because I have better things to do with my life than run for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I did it. It was on the bucket list of things to do. I always wanted to run a marathon, and I did it. My question to you now is, where has this brought Dan to? Where's Dan Zehner now?
It's brought me to a place where I find adventure in my little patch of Tippecanoe County, Indiana, and I don't have to go to France to have an adventure. I just get on my bike and go find some farmer's field to cuddle up in under a tree for the night and bike back in the morning to get my kids on the bus. It's this idea that, like, don't get me wrong, I literally have a bucket list book sitting on my desk. And I love scrolling Instagram and looking at overlanders rigs as much as the next guy. And sure, I just got back from driving my kids to North Carolina and back by myself and camping along the way. But I don't have to go anywhere huge or do anything massive like a double marathon with a ruck on to have some adventure in my life. And so it's, and I don't get this right all the time either. As we speak, I'm not super happy with how my body team is showing up. That's currently my team. I need to optimize some more is who in my life is supporting me in how I feel in my own body. I haven't teamed well there lately. I've moved a little bit more towards the rest spectrum than the adventure and engagement spectrum. So that's kind of where I'm at now is really not feeling the pressure to figure things out, trying to rest with my father a little bit more than I have been the past years and say, hey, what can we partner with today? Rather than, I want to go do this awesome thing. Let's go. And asking, praying that he bless my plans. It's more learning, how do I be a son again? Because I have a great earthly father. He's a good guy, but he's human like the rest of us, and he messed up in being a father. And I have some things to work through with my therapist about that. So it's learning how to be a son again, learning how to be led into things again, rather than feeling like I've got to lead everything.
Right.
So that's where I'm at right now is looking at any obstacle in life as an adventure, and not I gotta go somewhere else for adventure. I gotta go do a big thing for adventure. It's
Right.
my friend Alistair Humphreys puts it a really good way. It's looking for micro adventures. What's the smallest dose of adventure that you can do on a regular basis? Go jump in a creek. Go climb a tree. Go create something with your kids. Try and keep your kids off screens for a day. That's an adventure.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's embracing those micro adventures, as well as the adventure of story. As I mentioned earlier, I'm writing a book. Whew, that's been an adventure. That's been as hard as any of the physical adventures I've done of
I was gonna say, for
mining
sure.
the depths of my heart and my story for things that might help somebody. Uh, whew. Um, I submitted a 52,000 word manuscript to my creative coach last week. It was just my heart on pages. And he's a great guy. And I know he's not going to judge me, and he's treating it with kindness. But he's also going to leave probably about half of it on the cutting room floor.
Yep. Yep.
And so a lot of my story is being surrounded by half finished projects that I didn't finish because I didn't want to be judged on them. Case in point, the desk that my keyboard is currently sitting on is about half finished, for one reason or another. My shed in the back that I do furniture projects in and other things currently doesn't have power because I haven't bothered to prioritize running a new electrical line out there because I feel inadequate around electricity. And I haven't built the team around that, the resources around that yet. So it's going into these areas where I have unfinished things physically and emotionally, and doing that without judgment. Of like, hey, dude, you're doing the best you can with what you got. Yes, you may need to persevere a bit more here. Yeah, you may have been a little bit lazy there, but sometimes you need to be a little bit lazy, and that's okay.
Right.
You're not behind.
Right.
As my friend Morgan constantly has to remind me. It's like, I'm 34. I don't need to pretend that I'm 44. I'm
Great.
on time.
And so, Dad, so you're just to kind of sort of tie things up. You're doing SEAL team leaders. You're still working for Purdue. It's pronounced Purdue.
Yes.
Purdue University, and you have this company called Anthem of the Adventurer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Anthem of the Adventurer started out of my own itch for adventure. I read the book Wild at Heart, as I mentioned, and I felt like somebody had just hit my heart with a mallet, and it was resonating like a gong. I'm like, what the heck do I do with this? And I got the opportunity to be on a video call with John Eldridge in the Alliance, the Dad Edge Alliance, and I was like, John, what do I do with this? And he's like, well, first off, sounds really awesome. Love what you're being led into. And you should talk to God about that. You should ask him, what's your next step and who are your allies? I'm like, how do I do that? Like, I grew up in the church, I've been Christian most of my life, but I don't think to that point I'd ever had an actual two-way conversation with the Almighty. And he's like, dude, it's really simple. This is what we're created for. Thankfully, he also wrote a book about it called Walking with God, which I then read 4 times. And so through that process, learned to listen more than I talk. And heard, hey, you should start a podcast. You should invite these people to be on it. I did. And I'm like, got 12 people to sign up to be on the show. And hey, I've got a podcast about adventure now. Cool. And now we've got a blog with some amazing writers, Natalie and Armando and Jeff. My buddy Ryan has also got on the team to help with marketing things. And we are aimed at guys just like I used to be, just like many of us used to be. You're trapped in your cubicle, and you wake up at the same time every day, and you put on your khaki pants, and put on your polo shirt, and you drive your sensible automobile down the highway.
Toyota Prius.
Your Toyota Prius or your Subaru, and you go to the same cubicle every day, and you don't have any windows in there, and you go home the same time every day, and you kiss your wife and you hug your kids and you go to bed. at the same time every night after maybe playing some video games or doing some stuff on the internet that you shouldn't. And you've achieved things that are objectively good in life that you thought were going to fill you up. You've got the good job. You've got a wife who loves you. You've got a couple of kids running around and you love them, and you got a good house and you got a good life, but you're feeling duped. You're feeling a bit empty. You're feeling like there's something missing. And so what we do is we, through the lens of adventures, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, bring you into this wacky, crazy, unknown life with God, and not the cookie cutter Christmas card Christ that we've all been sold for one reason or another in our faith upbringings, whether you were in the church growing up or not. A lot of how we have learned God, we have learned him wrong. I've come to find. And I'm not saying I've got it all right by any stretch. I'm learning this as much as anybody. But that's part of the adventure, is as I'm growing, bringing the next guy on the rope on this mountain climb that we're on up a little bit farther through some adventures. And so meeting those guys and the women that they love as well, where they're at. Maybe they've never been camping before and they want to try it. Maybe they want to learn a new skill. Maybe they want to get deeper into art or science. Wherever those adventures are in their lives, maybe it's just the adventure of being a dad. I say just, but the adventure of being a dad.
Yeah.
Right? And giving dignity to those everyday adventures rather than just this bucket list stuff. Oh, I've got to go to deepest Mongolia and go to the Great Wall of China, or I've got to climb Mount Everest. That's adventure. Capital A adventure. Capital E expeditions. Yeah, those are great. Don't get me wrong. Love it.
Yeah.
But it's equipping men and women for an adventurous life with God every day. And so that's what we write about. So we talk about, that's what the book's about, and really love doing it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, you can count me in. I'm going to be. You'll see that I will be there with little Leonardo one day. I mean, my first adventure is to take him. I've always wanted to go to Disneyland and to be on the Disney cruise. Now, I think he's a little young for Disneyland. But
wait until he'll actually remember it before you spend $10,000 on that.
but to go and take him to on a cruise to the Disney cruise is something that even at this age, I think he'll
One
appreciate.
thing I've found, and this is actually really just recently, so on the road trip that we went on with Alex and Jane, loved it. Such a great time. But the thing that lit them up the most was not going to the Carolina Hurricanes game and cheering them on as they faced the Washington Capitals. It wasn't going to the Blue Ridge Mountains and camping out with the Blue Ridge Overland Gear people and driving along that scenic drive on the way back. No, we stopped at a park while I was on our SEAL Team Leaders team call, and they were running around in this park at an elementary school in Virginia. And they had so much fun there. Okay, so I don't have to drive across the country to have an adventure with my kids necessarily. I can just go 2 counties over and stop at a school and let them run around a bit. I'm learning in all of this as much as anybody.
I mean, listen, I feel that about toys, man. This little guy's got so many toys, and when he was a kid, all these toys. And what does he want to do? Play with pots and pans. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of idea. You know, you don't have to create this grandiose adventure that requires you to put a tent on top of your Land Rover and
if you do, great. But if I love my Land Rover with my tent on top. It's
exactly. I love it. I love the picture. I love the picture. You know,
it gets back to I really resonate a lot with the words of Teddy Roosevelt, so American president in the early 1900s. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's do what you can with what you have where you are. And that's it. That's it. That's the work. You don't have to compare yourself to somebody on Instagram or Twitch or YouTube or whatever, that's their life. And that's fantastic. Use it as inspiration, as motivation, as entertainment, because it mostly is just entertainment.
That's right.
But go with God in whatever way is personal to you, because like you're a dad, you know, as an earthly dad, you want what's best for your kids. That's all you want, is what's best for your kids. You want to lead them. You want them to grow. You want them to learn skills that are meaningful and helpful and help them to connect with other people and team well in life. Yeah. And how much more does our perfect Father want that for us? And how much better is he able to do that than we are?
Right. And what's our definition of team in SEAL team leaders? 2
or more individuals coordinating action to create a different future.
Create a different future. Exactly. And that's what it takes, my friend, is a good team. And I got to say that what I love about the story that you've shared with us today, Dan, is there is no, again, anybody who's watching this will say, like, there's no box. There's no box. There's no Dan fits in. He's an engineer. Yeah, great. That's what he was, decided that that's what he was going to do. And then all of a sudden, he goes out onto these journeys. He takes the adventures of getting involved. Because I know Go Ruck. I've got an old friend who was involved in Go Ruck and does all of these crazy things that you do. You know, but I think that again, what I love about this story, because we can hear the passion in your voice as you talk about the adventure of going, 50 miles in 20 hours.
My hamstrings hurt every time I tell this story.
Right. But I love that there's no box, and I love that there's some faith and spirit there. I love that it's just a journey, and that's the part, is that it's a journey. And as you quote or paraphrase Teddy Roosevelt, that's really how I feel about life as well. It's that thing for me. I don't have to be in the cubicle job. Listen, one of my friends now, Dan, took me through the Donald Miller story brand process.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And he talked to me about my company. He says, the reason why an organization like Star Wars was so famous was because there's a character, there's a villain, the character meets a guide, the guide shows him a plan, and then he shows him what success and failure looks like. Mm-hmm. And what I love about that journey is that for me, I've come to understand who my villain is, and it's programming. That's the villain. That's who I want to fight against. The idea that you don't have to wake up and go get a good education just to go get a pensionable job so that you can meet a partner, have 2.2 kids, and work for 30, 40 years,
right,
so you can develop cancer and then die before you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. And no judgment on anybody who is following
and no judgment about anybody who's done that. That's not for me.
Right.
And I can see that sort of energy with you, Dan, that you wanted to do that, you started to do that, you did do that, and then you said, I don't know if that's in alignment with who I am anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's not what's best for me. And then all of a sudden you go and you have your job, but it doesn't, and we're going to come back full circle. It doesn't define who you are, but you said it in a way, Dan, that it says it doesn't
demand my full attention.
That's right. It doesn't demand my full attention. And I love that.
It doesn't dominate my attention. That's what it was. It doesn't dominate my attention.
That's right. And I love that. I think that's the quote, Mr. Josh Leslie, that his job doesn't dominate his attention. And I love that. I love that so much. That's going to be a quote that I'm going to put on one of these decorous life little things that I do for social media, that work should not demand or dominate your attention.
Also, another quote I've come to enjoy in the writing process is, Biscuits and gravy heals a multitude of wounds. Or if you're Canadian, poutine heals a multitude of
There
wounds.
you go.
You
Poutine Nation, you heard it live on the Coffee and Biscotti show. You see, poutine should be Canada's national dish. You heard it from Dan all the way from West Lafayette, Indiana.
Heck, it should be North America's dish, because let's be honest, Americans love our fries and cheese and gravy too.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Dan, I can't thank you enough, my friend. Would you believe that it's already 90 minutes?
I know. I was looking at it around an hour. I'm like, sheesh, I got another half an hour to chat here. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody who's been around a campfire with me long enough knows that I can talk for quite a while about just about anything.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for coming and sharing your passion. Thank you for shining your light to those that are going to watch this, that have watched this live or will watch the recording of it. Thank you for really doing that on a special day for me as I celebrate 4 years of being a dad.
Yeah, cheers to that, man.
Absolutely, my friend. You really are such a great guy, Dan. I love hanging around you, love spending time with you. I hope we can do this again. And I hope that as we can continue to grow and learn and evolve. You know, I use this expression a lot, that I was once told that perfection is constant evolution.
I like that.
And I enjoy that, because I think that that's what this is all about. And I think that if somebody heard this story, and if they, even with that quote, my work doesn't dominate my attention, if they felt the energy of that and what that means in someone's life, maybe they're going to go out and change something in their life.
Hope so.
You're awesome, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks,
thank
brother.
you so much.
Hopefully
I'm
we'll
going to put
see
you
you around
backstage.
a campfire with some coffee and biscotti or bourbon, depending on the time of day.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend, I think that it is going to be something that Leonardo and I pencil in.
Oh yeah,
Is
we're only a 10-hour drive away.
Well, listen, we're not I've never really been a huge camper. I've gone a couple times in my 20s, but it has been years since I've camped. And I'll tell you, I would love for you to share your passion and experience for camping.
Michigan is not very far from you and is world-class camping.
There you go. You never know.
And it's not very far for me either. So, you know.
As the brain and the gerbil starts to run on the wheel.
This is why I keep this beard around, for pondering, plotting, and scheming.
Indeed.
All right. See you, brother.
I'm going to put you backstage. I'll be right back.
Right on.
Yeah, baby. There's your quote. Your work should not dominate your attention. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. What a great show. Guys, thank you as always for being here. Such a special day for me. It's more like I'm celebrating just as much as Leonardo's celebrating his 4th birthday, you know? I'm celebrating with him and sharing in his joy and his passion as he brings vegan cupcakes to the daycare, because we have to be very careful, of course. But he's got vegan cupcakes going to his daycare, and you know, they're going to celebrate there. And tomorrow we're taking him to a place called Little Ray's Nature Center so he can play with lizards and spiders and snakes. And it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited to share in this experience and adventure with Leonardo. Next week on the Coffee and Biscotti show, we shift from the male energy and we go to the female energy. And the joy of this female energy for me, because she happens to be an old professor who is probably one of the most influential women in my life. I've known her since 1996. She was a professor in college, and she has decided to grace me with her presence as we spend 90 minutes next week talking to a PhD in holistic education out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. A woman that I call Dr. Love, Dr. Celia Karsten. So make sure, my friends, you join us next week here on the Coffee and Biscotti Show. Today we are headed to Florida to visit DJ Chris Craze and join his 2 years on Twitch celebration. Josh, always a pleasure. Shout out to my mom and Sandra Mio. Thank you for coming and participating in Leo's birthday party. And to all of you, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Wishing you all a wonderful Friday and an even awesomer weekend. My friends, much love to you all. This is Crew Mel saying, I'm out of here. Peace out, homies. Have a great day.